So the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro is yet another Wear OS smartwatch taking on the likes of the Pixel Watch, the Samsung Galaxy Watch 6, except that here in Blighty it costs from just 220 quid. With those kinds of savings, you could treat yourself to a wet weekend in Wolverhampton. I've had the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro slapped on my arm for over a week now, so here's my full unboxing and review. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! But first of all, what have you got inside of that almighty box instead of, naturally, a Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro? Well, no massive shocks, you've basically got Xiaomi's proprietary charging dock, and you've also got a dinky wee instruction manual. And that's your whack, nice and simple. So now let's skip forward in time just over a week, so I can deliver my in-depth Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro review. Now obviously it's a matter of opinion, but I'm not head over heels in love with the design of the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro. Compared with quite a lot of other recent smartwatches, it is rather plain and nondescript. It's certainly no Huawei Watch GT4, but then it is also cheaper to be fair. Bit of a chunkster as well at 12mm, but that's again pretty standard for a smartwatch. And 54 grams, so it certainly ain't lightweight either. It's definitely better suited to bigger wrists, shall we say. In fact, it only just fits on my wrist on the last little notch on the strap. Curse my baby wrist strikes again. And speaking of the straps, you've got a choice of fluoro rubber, quite handy for casual wear in your sports shenanigans, etc. You can grab a leather strap as well, but it is just a standard 22mm band. Very easy to snap on and off and replace with another that you've got lying around. And the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro, of course, naturally fully water resistant. It can survive down to depths of 5 atmospheres, so no worries if you want to do a bit of snorkeling, a bit of skinny dipping, that sort of thing. Now this smartwatch supports Bluetooth 5.2. I've had absolutely no issues whatsoever syncing up with the Xiaomi Mi Fitness app, which you can download from the Play Store. No fannying about having to download it from the internet like with the Huawei Watch. And setting up the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro from inside the app, super easy. You can fully customize it. So you can stick a new watch face on there. You've got a reasonable selection to begin with, but then you can download tons more from the Play Store, so no worries there. You can also say exactly which apps are allowed to give you a buzz on the wrist with the notifications, but I have noticed that apps that you freshly installed on your phone come activated by default, so you want to make sure every time you do install a new app, you just knock it off in there if you don't want updates. You can set all the fitness permissions, so for instance 24-hour heart rate tracking, etc. Customize the tiles, which are basically the widgets you see when you swipe left and right. Loads and loads of stuff, and in here you can also check all of your stats. The app syncs up automatically with the watch over that Bluetooth connection, so you can see how much or how little exercise you've been doing overall. It's not quite on the same level as a Garmin, but it'll certainly suit most users, especially if you're just casually into your exercise and want to see if it's making a difference. Now the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro sports a 1.43-inch AMOLED display. It's pleasingly crisp with its 466 by 466 pixel resolution, so tiny text and the like, not a problem. You've got sharp contrast, nice poppy colours as well, so there's certainly no complaints whatsoever with that display. It's just as good as any other premium smartwatch from the likes of Google and Samsung. And I've had no issues with the auto brightness either. It hits up to 600 nits, so even if the sun is glaring off this screen, you can generally see what's going on because a lot of these menus are really bright and poppy. And I found that the auto brightness works well, pleasingly responsive. And the UI is pretty easy to get to grips with. You can access your notifications by swiping down, similar to an Android smartphone. Though I've got to admit, I did for the first few days keep on swiping up because I'm just so used to that being the way on a lot of smartwatches. Whereas here it's all flip reversed with the settings. And as usual, a swipe left and right will take you through all of your various widgets. As I showed you before, you can customize those actually through the app, otherwise you can just do it directly here on the watch face, removing any that you might not use and then chucking in some more as well, as long as you've got space. And you've got a decent selection of stuff here, all the usual fitness tracking shenanigans and plenty of extras on top. Feels like most of your apps do have a corresponding widget. And that rotating crown comes in pretty handy for flipping through menus and the like. You've also got yourself a pair of shortcut buttons over here on the right edge. The top one loads up workouts by default, but you can customize that to load up a different app if you're not really a fan of the old workouts. And then that bottom button will load up the most recently used app. So for instance, say we jump on into the Play Store, go back to the main watch face, then tap that bottom button, Play Store pops up again. And you can also double tap that bottom button to bring up your Google Wallet so you can fast access credit cards, tickets, that sort of thing. And because it's Wear OS and you've got that Play Store access, that means that basically the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro can download bugger tons of different apps. So certainly compared with the likes of Huawei watches, you've got incredible expansion here. And you get all the usual Google bangers installed on here by default, so Google Wallet. Bit of Google Maps, of course, very handy if you want turn-by-turn navigation right there on your wrist. And yes, even YouTube Music. Does anyone actually use YouTube Music? And when you're paired up with an Android device, that notification support is fantastic. Any messages that pop in, you can give them a quick tap, flick through, have a proper read. You can either respond using your voice, using emojis, using a teeny tiny wee keyboard. I would certainly go for the voice option because it's a lot less awkward, but to be fair, the mini keyboard works surprisingly well. That's supposed to be spare, at least you got the autocorrect. You got the usual swipe shenanigans as well, but I can never really get that to work properly. I'm too bloody old, I don't understand this stuff. Or alternatively, if it's just a big load of guff where you can just delete it from your phone right there on your watch and never have to deal with it. And naturally, you've got our great mate, the Google Assistant on here as well, who can be endearingly borky, as always. But you know, it's fine for basic stuff. What's my next meeting? What's the weather going to be like? Who's Sunderland going to get battered by next? You can call her into action by either long pressing that crown, otherwise there is Hey Google's.
Here are some results from the web.
And you can call her into action by long pressing that crown, otherwise there is Hey support on here as well, but you do have to wake the watch up first. Who are Sunderland Football Club playing in their next match?
Sunderland will be playing Stoke City on the 21st of October at 3 PM.
Alex Neil, hope we batter them. And I've had no issues whatsoever with the mic or the speaker on this thing. As you can hear, they're nice and loud on that top volume for the Google Assistant. Even when you're in quite a noisy area, the mic seems to pick up in your voice pretty well, especially for phone calls and the like. So you can walk down the street like this, pretending you're in Star Trek or something. I've noticed a disturbing lack of Greggs in the area. Where am I going to go for my steak bake? And Xiaomi is offering the option of a bit of LTE action on the Watch 2 Pro as well, if you don't want to be constantly tethered to your smartphone. Now the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro might be a bit more budget friendly than some of the other premium smartwatches out there, but when it comes to the performance, that is premium through and through. Running the show, you've got Qualcomm Snapdragon W5 Plus Gen 1, very catchy name that. And it's backed by 2 gigs of RAM, which might not sound like much, but for a smartwatch that's pretty beefy. And that's the same setup as the Ticwatch 5 Pro, which I recently reviewed. And once again, here on the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro, that performance is smoother than the top of my head. And when it comes to health shenanigans, you've got the full works on here. 24-hour heart rate tracking, SpO2 levels, you can measure your skin temperature. You've also got a bit of body composition action, just like you do on those Samsung Galaxy watches. Takes a few seconds of holding very still. I'm apparently 15% fat, 3% salt. I actually think I'm probably about 80% beer and whiskey, but there you go. Low muscle mass? Well, that's just rude. And overall, it seems to all work as expected, although I do get the occasional erroneous heart rate reading. Like here, apparently just for 1 minute at around 2 AM this morning, I had a heart rate of 120, apparently, despite being asleep. That must have been a f***ing great dream. And I also found that for the first few days I was testing out the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro, that steps count never really seemed to update. Or just update wrong, so for instance I would walk a mile and it would reckon I'd done it in like 22 steps. Thankfully this seems to have corrected itself the past couple of days, so there must have been some sort of update or it just suddenly decided to get its arse in gear. As for your sports tracking, well as usual you've got well over 100 different forms of exercise supported here, some more questionable than others. So yeah, you do have the likes of fishing on here, swinging, well hey, table football, and good old esports. And the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro can also auto-track some forms of exercise, so walking for instance, usually if I've been walking for a good 5-10 minutes it does flash up, I've noticed that you're walking. Are you feeling alright? What's going on? You do realise you're on a car, right? And you can either tell it to shut up or you can get it to track your session. Just remember to manually switch it off when you've reached your destination, because otherwise you'll literally be sat there for an hour and it'll still be tracking your walking. As for the GPS, well, it's your 5-system dual-band shenanigans, and it seems pretty accurate here on the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro, certainly as accurate as most other watches I've tested recently. Does tend to take a little while to get going when you first start, but you know, give it a minute or two and it'll eventually get there. As for the battery life, well, that's one of the areas where it's actually good that the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro is a bit of a chunkster, because you've got an almost 500 mAh capacity cell crammed in there. So not as big as that Ticwatch sadly, but certainly bigger than a lot of rivals like the Samsung Galaxy Watch 6 and that Pixel Watch 2. However, like other Wear OS watches, the battery life is less than stellar. I found I couldn't quite ever make it through a full 48-hour period on a single charge of the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro. It would always end up dying around the sort of 45-46 hour mark. So certainly if you're going to spend a full weekend away from home, you'll want to take the charging dock as well. And speaking of which, you don't have wireless charging support here on the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro either. That's another area where they've cut costs. You will have to use the bundled dock. Needs that pin connection. But the good news is that this thing charges up really fast. Bung the Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro on that dock for around 15 to 20 minutes and you'll get a full day of use out of it. So at least you don't have to worry about charging it up overnight or anything like that. Just slap it on the dock when you go for your shave and shower in the morning and it'll be ready when you're back out again. And there you have it, my lovelies. That in a tasty wee nutshell is the fresh new Xiaomi Watch 2 Pro. A serious chunk of change cheaper than the likes of the Pixel Watch 2 and the Samsung Galaxy Watches. A few little sacrifices you have to make here and there, but overall it is quite a premium experience. Got that full Wear OS functionality. Just a shame the battery life isn't quite as good as the likes of the Ticwatch. That's what I reckon anyway. It'll be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke, subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the usual techie, stuffy things. Have yourselves a ruddy, wonderful rest of the week. Cheers!